Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Can we all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. You are welcome to class. You're welcome to week one of the Gypsy Mentorship and Internship program. Welcome to week one of the Gypsy Mentorship and Internship program for the Entertainment, Business, and Law class. Right. We are going to be kicking off on our way to just delve into our topic for today, which is film business, film business and law. Right. My name is Dennis Williams, and I would be helping moderate today's session. I want to welcome all of you. I trust it's going to be a very, very rewarding session for each and every single one of us. So kindly buckle in your seatbelts because we are going to be having a very, very awesome class. So in today's session, the agenda for today, what we are going to be working with is that we are going to start out with introducing our mentors for today. Then we'll go ahead to have a brief presentation from them, right? An opening introduction into the topic for today. And then after that, we'll take presentations from the mentees. So please, I want to encourage both Group 1 and Group 2 presenters to get ready, because once the mentors are done with their presentation, you'll be given 10 minutes for your presentation. You'll be allowed a 10 minutes allocation for your presentation. And once that is done, we'll be taking feedbacks from the mentors. They will be speaking to your presentations, some of what you have said. If there are mistakes you have made, they will be correcting them. And then, from there, we'll now take questions and answers, and then we'll call it a day. But so not to waste any further time, I would just like to start off by introducing our mentors for today. Unfortunately, we're supposed to have Miss Amanda Uzuagba, but she is currently under the weather, so she will not be joining us in today's session. Hopefully, we'll be having her in subsequent sessions, but I will just kindly do well to still read her profile so that you can get to connect with her on LinkedIn, right? And eventually, if you want to ask any questions that you may have, you can always reach out to her and do that. Miss Amanda Ineoma Uzoagba is an entertainment lawyer, award-winning author, entertainment executive, sales consultant, public speaker, and legal educator. She holds a law degree from Nigeria, from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and was called to the bar in 2017. She's currently the head of licensing West Africa at undombo.com AS, a Pan-African music service company where she oversees licensing operation within West Africa, particularly Ghana and Nigeria. Amanda has facilitated many events, conferences, and webinars targeted at educating entertainers, entrepreneurs, and creatives on the protection of their intellectual property rights works. She has more than 8 years of experience in the entertainment industry, starting as a blogger and a PR consultant for record labels before she was called to the Nigerian bar. As an entertainment business executive, she has facilitated and negotiated over $5 million involving catalog sales, endorsement deals, branding, licensing, distribution, publishing deals, recording deals, live events, and so on, for an array of artists, record labels, and investors, as well as helping them navigate the complex legal landscape of the music business. She has also worked on more than 45 productions, exhibited in theaters, film festivals, and on international streaming platforms. She has worked on a variety of co-production, development, and production deals within production deals with international studios such as Netflix, Sony Pictures, BBC, Westbrook, AMC, Amazon Prime, Green Door Production, etc. In 2019, Amanda launched her consultancy firm called Goldweek. Goldweek's Consults, a boutique consulting firm that focuses on the entertainment and creative business, providing a range of services related to the legal and business aspects of the entertainment industry. Her diverse background and extensive experience makes her a prominent figure in the intersection of law and the entertainment industry in Nigeria and across the world. In absence, we would still like to give a big shout out to Miss Amanda. She has consecutively been with us as a mentor, giving our mentees the best in terms of advice, professional advice, and helping us run through the complex landscape of the entertainment industry. We look forward to having her in the next session. So please do well to prepare to have her. In today's class, we'll be having Miss Omotayo Abiode. Miss Oyotayo Alemeru Abiode is the founder and lead consultant at My Digital Lawyer, where she uses her experience in intellectual property and entertainment law to educate and enlighten creatives and entrepreneurs on how to legalize and protect their brands and innovations. She has a master's degree in intellectual property law and policy and has completed several certifications in intellectual property with international organizations, including but not limited to the World Intellectual Property Organization. Omotayo, also widely known as My Digital Lawyer, regularly advises and represents a wide range of brands within and outside Nigeria on transaction commercial issues, including basic and technical legal issues surrounding intellectual property, media, and entertainment. With about 10 years post-call experience and about 5 years active experience in being an IP lawyer and tutor, Omotayo likes to identify herself as a woman and in entertainment and intellectual property because she constantly works with entrepreneurs and creatives, and she uses her practical experience to teach intellectual property rights, thereby helping business owners and creatives legalize and protect their brands, innovation, creative works effectively. Omotayo has an excellent reputation for constantly sharing great value with her audience online. She has been interviewed by quite a number of shows on international TVs like Arise and X-Paid Media in the United States, both digitally and in person, respectively. She also has a YouTube channel, My Star Lawyer, where she posts legal content on IP, entertainment law, and related content to help businesses and creators understand how to protect their intellectual property rights. She does this across all our social media networks such as Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok. Omotayo stands out for gender equality in the workplace by using her voice, especially on digital media, to communicate the need to embrace equity as well as celebrate diversity, particularly in the creative community, so women can be given equal opportunities as their male counterparts in every sphere of work. We want to say a big welcome to Miss Omotayo. I can see she's already on the call. You are very, very, very much welcome, ma. We are happy to have you in today's class. Thank you so much, ma, for joining. We are excited and we look forward to listening and getting to learn from your vast experience within this space. Before we go on to welcome our mentor for today, I would like to kindly ask us to, for those who are in class, to turn on their videos. For my own end, the place is already getting very dark. You may not be able to see me as clearly as it would be. So please, I'd like to kindly ask that we turn on our videos for a quick screenshot of today's session so that we can carry on with the class for today. So please, if you can turn on your videos, let's take a quick picture. Thank you, Precious. Mr. Emmanuel, I can see your video is on. All right, can we have more people turn on their videos so that we can take a quick screenshot? Thank you as you comply. Thank you. All right, we are done with that. Thank you everyone that was able to turn on their video. Thank you to everyone that was able to turn on their video. So we'll be kicking off with a presentation from, or a discourse from Ms. Omotayo as an introduction into the class for today. Like I said, our topic for today is film business and law. And Ms. Omotayo, you are welcome once again. We would like to give you the floor and then the opportunity to just run us through what you have for us today in the next 30 to 40 minutes, if that will be possible, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. Thank you for your time, for your introduction too. My name is Omotayo Abiode, like you rightly said, and I'll be speaking to you about film business and law. So I'd just like to say my approach for teaching. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. I'm coming from the practical. Excellent, Daniela, thank you. My approach for teaching right now is from the practical aspect, right? So I understand you all have done your research properly. I've gone through your presentations, both parties, and you have done well with your presentations. But I'd just like to say briefly, entertainment law, no one really teaches entertainment law in the university, right? No one really teaches film and business law in the university. But as law students, as lawyers, as law graduates, for you to succeed in the business of, in the entertainment business and in entertainment law generally, you have to understand the business itself. So I will tell you one thing for sure. Lawyers, we are very learned to the extent that we like to just know law, law, law. So if you're going to succeed in the entertainment business, you have to come down to the creatives level. Come down such that you understand everything that is going on in the film. We're talking about film business here. So let me just go strictly to film business. You have to understand how the film business runs. Understand who the producer is, understand who the filmmaker is, who the EP is, understand their language, understand how ownership rights are distributed amongst these people. Practically, I'm using the word practically because there's a difference between what the law ought to be and what the law actually is. There's a difference between what we study in school, what you research on Google, on any form of research platform, and from what is obtainable here. I want to believe that most of us here are in Nigeria. I don't know if there are people from other countries here, but I would like to focus on Nollywood here so that when you understand how it's done home, you can know how to relate your business abroad. And when I'm saying your business, that's your client's business, because eventually, as a lawyer, you'll be representing filmmakers and artists. So first thing, understand the business, because nothing takes away the lawyer from you. You always be that lawyer. You're already qualified to be a lawyer. If you're a law graduate and then you go to law school, you're qualified. But what makes you that expert in the entertainment business is understanding the industry itself. Understand that sometimes the experts there like to feel like they know what they are doing and they do not want to listen to a lawyer's advice. So it's your own job to know how to be diplomatic amongst them, to be diplomatic amongst your clients and whoever they are working with. I'm saying this because eventually, it might be in 5 years' time, 4 years, 10 years, you will see this play out. You will see what I'm saying. You will see how it plays out. Second thing I would like to draw your attention to before we go to the legal aspect is your network, right? So if you want to call yourself, when I started out with only business law and intellectual property law before I actually moved into entertainment law, focused into entertainment law. For you to get into the entertainment place, first of all, you have to be in the right place. You have to be in the right location. I'm not trying to segregate, but if you want to really do film business, If you not focus on Asaba Wood, you can be in the East. It's not bad because there are people that actually focus on the YouTube version and Asaba version, and they're in the East. You can come from the East, right? From like Enugu, Delta. I'm saying your place of residence where you can meet people like that because you have to actually meet these people you're working with. But oftentimes, Lagos and sometimes maybe Abuja, Port Harcourt, these major cities are cities where you think of practicing, you should think of staying so that you can actually meet these people. In fact, to be honest with you, if you want to attend events and network with people in that industry, because it's by networking you will meet your next client. Of course, we're not allowed to advertise. You already know that, like other areas of business, right? So as a lawyer, it's good that you position yourself in the right circle. Now, taking you now back to law, because I believe most of you are wondering where do we get to the legal part. I'm saying the practical part, and then you merge these into your knowledge of law. So the knowledge of law required for you to succeed in the entertainment business, in the film business. We're talking of your law of contracts, your intellectual property law. You see these two areas of law. Of course, you as a lawyer, you know every other area of law, right? But you have to know your law of contract like at the back of your hands. Your intellectual property law at the back of your hands. You have to understand contracts. In fact, the film business is anchored on the law of contract and intellectual property law, I must say. So if you did not do intellectual property law, because I understand intellectual property law in law school, I say law school now, I mean in the university, of course. I believe most schools, they take that as electives. You don't have to worry. I myself, I didn't do intellectual property law as an undergraduate, but I have a master's in intellectual property law. And if you do not have a master's in intellectual property law, you also do not have to worry because you can actually study by yourself. Like what you're doing right now, this course you're taking, you can take courses with WIPO, you can take advanced courses, intellectual property, and get to understand. And you read. I'll recommend some books. I'll send. I don't have the list. I didn't do a presentation, but I will drop a list of books at the end of my session that can help you, practical guides that can help you. So I think Dennis, is this Dennis that's here? If I'm not mistaken. Okay, Dennis, right? Okay, thank you. You can do me a reminder, or Sophie, I'll do it. I'll drop the list of books. I send it via email later, and then you look up. You study by yourself. Look up some videos on YouTube. Get yourself abreast with contract law and intellectual property law. So now the law of contract. Let me do a recap for us. Let's just refresh our memory. I don't want to assume that we all know what law of contract is, but I want to break it down like we are not lawyers, but I'm breaking it down like the way I talk to my creatives. The law of contract is the law that just guides your relationship, your business with one another. So it's between one person and another. You have, I'm offering you this. You're not compelled because it's not a rule and regulation for you to accept. But if you do accept, and for a reason, that is consideration. When we say consideration, it can be monetary. In this entertainment business, not every time they pay you money for your job. Sometimes they tell you they are doing there's this word they call it. I'm trying to remember the exact word. I don't know if someone can help me. This word exposure. Sometimes they tell you they are paying you with exposure. These are practical things you need to understand too in the entertainment business. I'm saying this because as a lawyer, you can have a client that will come to you and say, I want to do this job for this person, but they're not paying me money. And they're saying exposure. There are several arguments against exposure. People say, oh, you can't do that. How can you do that? Because is it exposure you're going to it? But I would like to say, in my own opinion and from my experience, sometimes you can actually negotiate, and that's what makes you a lawyer. You negotiate on behalf of your client. In fact, as a lawyer, in my early days, I've done a particular job for a very, very less fee, but for exposure. So exposure in this sense was I actually had to fight for my right to credit. I insisted I got credited on this particular project since I wasn't being paid. Of course, even if I was being paid very, very well, I should have gotten credit, right? But I leveraged on the credit. And what that credit did for me eventually, I want to say is much more than what my full payment at that time would have been. Of course, now I'm in a better position to negotiate for better fees, right? So I can actually have my exposure together with money. So now back to you as a lawyer to a creative client, right? When you're negotiating on behalf of your creatives, maybe a filmmaker or a budding actor or actress or a budding content creator, and they're saying, you know what, or a budding script writer, I don't want to use your scripts for this particular film. You don't even know if it's Funke Akindele's film or Ebony Life film or one of these big filmmakers, and they're telling you, we don't have so much to pay you, even if you think in your head you have a lot to pay. You can actually consider the pros and cons on behalf of your client. And once you consider that, you're saying, oh, we're not getting paid for this, but we're getting some other benefits. What you do is put it in writing. And the other benefits can come in the form of not just credit, intellectual property rights. You can say, you know what, I reserve the right to use this particular script. I reserve the right to be contacted every time you want to adapt this into another film. Every time you want to do a spin-off of this particular work. You know, sometimes people just work and they think at a go. When you do a particular job at once, right? You get paid and that's all. There's so much, is a deep well where you can get so much from your intellectual property rights. So if you have the right lawyer, or if you are the right lawyer for your creative, you can actually help them exploit so much from their rights beyond what money can get. If someone is saying their rate card is 250,000 for a particular script, and the filmmaker is saying, I have just 100,000. I'm not saying you should always sell yourself short, sell your clients short, right? I'm saying you can look out for other ways that they can get benefits. This is important for you to know, so you don't just go with the rigidity of a lawyer when negotiating for your client. Okay. Now back to law of contract. This is just one of the practical things you need to see. So you're not just looking at it from the point of the recital, this is the introductory part, this is the commencement, everything they teach you in law school, that actual structure. You're looking beyond, you're looking at the practical things. You're looking proactively into what can benefit your client, because everything you do, you're doing it to the best interest of the client. This is business. So you always have to look at the entertainment business as business. You're not looking at it as, oh, I'm here to just show my skills as a lawyer. I'm going to put all the legalese, all the plenty jargons. You're looking at it from the point of, how can I benefit this person? So imagine if you're the attorney or the lawyer to someone like Funke Akindele, whoever advised her. She said she shared a story sometime and said it was the bad advisor. You know, this Jennifer, if you know about Jennifer, how it started from the very first Yoruba Jennifer. The very first Jennifer was a Yoruba film. There was Jennifer 1, Jennifer 2, Return of Jennifer, and then several others before we got to this Everybody Loves Jennifer. It was the band that advised her, you know what, trademark this Jennifer. Of course, the band must have done that from the point of his experience. And that's why you, as a lawyer, you're not just going there as a lawyer. You have to understand how the business works. You have to be proactive on behalf of your clients. So see business opportunities from every aspect of their work. A film can lead to several other films. A film can lead to, you can get merchandise products of a particular film. You can trademark the terminologies used in your film. Something like Jennifer. No one else in Nigeria can use the Jennifer, Jenifa, because it's, of course, trademarked. And she has the right to do several spin-offs from that. So you're thinking of business, you're thinking of the monetary aspect, you're thinking of the moral rights that your clients would get from their intellectual property rights. You're thinking of, from the intellectual property rather, you're thinking of how it can last them even beyond their lifetime. You're thinking of how they can make money off a particular project, even if they are no longer in business. You know, when you have some creatives that, oh, they are in quotes trending in a particular period, and then after a particular period of time, they are no longer there. But you can see somehow there's still some value for them. That's for those that invested properly, using the right professionals around them. So that's enough about the film business. We can continue when you all do your presentation, and I have some things to address, right? But back to law. Intellectual property law is simply the law. I've spoken about contract law, so I'm going to intellectual property law. Simply, I would say the law that guides the creation of your mind. So we all have our minds, we all have our intellect, and even if you don't call yourself a creative, I believe the way God created us, everyone has some sort of talent in them. So the ability to create something that can be useful to people, that can be bought by people, that can be enjoyed by other people, can be shared to people, that ability is your intellectual property, and it is necessary for you to protect it like your life depends on it. And that's where the law of intellectual property comes in. So intellectual property is like an umbrella word for several rights, right? We have the copyright, we have the trademark rights, we have the patent rights, we have industrial designs, and sometimes we have the trade secrets. But for the film business, what's more prominent is the copyright and the trademark rights. Yes. And maybe a little bit of trade secrets. Yeah. So the copyrights, I hope you all are hearing me, right? I can get some emojis to you all, right? Okay. So now the copyright simply is the right to your creative, artistic, and artistic work. So musical works, works of cinematograph are governed by copyright. Your literary works, your artistic work like paintings, like drawings, they are governed by copyright. So if as a lawyer you see your Copyright Act, the most recent, I hope you all know that there's a recent Copyright Act, not the 2004 that it's always been quoted. There's the 2022 years Copyright Act. I hope you are aware of that. Yes. So it's important that you stay abreast with the current laws. Of course, they are similar, but it's good that you read one of the introductions to this new Copyright Act. If you ever studied the previous one before now, is the protection of digital protection of works. It was not introduced. It was never there. Was never envisaged in the previous one. So if you look through both of them, if you are able to study both acts, you can see the improvement in this new act. Now, you know your Copyright Act, you also need to understand the Trademark Act. So for copyright, one thing that is very, very, I think some of you wrote that in your research, but you need to know that practically, or no, literally, as the law provides, you do not need to register copyright. You're not mandated to register copyright. So if you want to stay protected, if you want to protect your musical or film work, you don't need to go to the Copyright Commission to register that work. However, I will tell you from my own 10 years plus, I think it's 11 years now, experience, right? I just like to, when they say it's better to err on the side of surplus. The law says it's not mandatory, but I would rather just have it. Like, why won't I just have it? Because when matters arise and you're looking for evidence, you're looking for proof of your ownership or proof of your rights, one of the things that you can actually present before the court or before anybody, when I say body, organization like YouTube, like AudioMark, like Apple, sometimes they request for a copyright certificate. They request for something to show your proof of ownership. If there's someone, I've worked in cases, especially with YouTube, where people get copyright infringement notification, and the only way they could actually prove their rights is by presenting an existing copyright notice, a copyright certificate. So the law says it's not mandatory, but why not? If you want to, if you can. So you can do that. You can always, of course, be clear enough to tell your clients that, look, this is not mandatory, but I advise you just get it done. The copyright is the only intellectual property right that does not necessarily need a registration for proof. All you need to do is, of course, I'm saying of course because I believe you have done your research and you know some of these things. All you need to do is to put it in a particular form. So that means your idea, you have this movie in your head, I want to make this blockbuster, and then you see, oh, Kemi Adetiba just did To Kill a Monk, and you're like, is she in my mind? Is she a witch to have done this movie? Because I thought about this exact script. Just that my own, the guy's name is not Oboz and it's not Efe, but I thought about this exact thing, and this is how the betrayal went, and this is exactly my story. But it was not in your head. God is so gracious to us. Everyone can have ideas, but if you do not put it out there in a form, then it's just in your head. We can't access your head. There's no code to access your head to say you have copyright in that idea. So ideas can never ever be protected. So when you have your ideas, this, I'm telling you this because this is what you tell your client, of course. I'm talking to you as creatives now. But when you have your ideas, so you talk to your client, when you have your ideas, you have to actually bring it out in a tangible form. Otherwise, nothing can be done about it. So once your work is already out there in a tangible form, then automatically you have copyright in that particular work. Next one is the trademark right, which is the next important right, intellectual property right in the film business. I mentioned Jennifer earlier as my perfect example. Jenifa is not the regular way to spell Jennifer as a name. I don't know. Is there any Jennifer here? I think I saw a Jennifer earlier. Jenifa is not the perfect way to spell Jennifer, right? Excellent, Jennifer. Thank you. So that's the spelling for Jennifer. If you can see that on the screen, give it a thumbs up. So when you're thinking of trademark rights, always advise your client. Trademark protects your brand identity, but of course, it has to be something unique, distinct enough to be protected. So you can't really say you want to protect this Jennifer by Jennifer yourself, because this Jennifer here is not the only Jennifer in the whole world. Some other person bears Jennifer. So if she's going to have to protect Jennifer, her own Jennifer, there has to be a prefix or a suffix to it. The Trademark Act would not tell you this, but I know this from my experience because I do this every other time. So you have to know what can be protected and what cannot be protected. So you see this Jennifer that is protected, the Jenifa. It was tweaked. She has a return, and she can do that because the idea came to her maybe over, I don't believe like 10 years or 11 years. I can't remember when Jennifer came out. Now it's almost like 19 years now. Yeah, the first Jennifer ever came out. So trademark rights is to protect unique things. And when I say unique, it doesn't have to be unique like dope, like cool, right? It can even be anything. It can even like MDL. I don't know, MDL might not be unique, but it's unique to my brand and it's trademarked. It might not look unique to you, but MDL doesn't mean anything to anybody like that. But it means something, so I got it protected. You understand what I'm saying? So you can advise your clients on when they have these slogans that are used to identify them, when they have these brand names, even film titles can be trademarked. It depends on how that film title is. If you have a generic name for your film title, you can't trademark that. So you have to know the right thing that can be trademarked. Not the fact that they've said trademark protects your brand identity doesn't mean everything you bring out there can be trademarked. Okay, so I don't want to take too much of it. We just have like 30 to 35 minutes for this, right? And I'll leave you all to do your presentation and I can address you as we proceed. Okay, so that'll be all for now by way of introduction.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Omotayo, for that wonderful presentation from you. We are excited to hear you share some of your professional insights with us on the topic for today and what you feel is very necessary for mentees to know as regards film business and law. Right. So we'll be taking presentations from the mentees, right? Group one and group two will be taking your presentation. And after you are done with your presentations, Ms. Omotayo will be coming back to give some kind of review to what you have done and make corrections where corrections need to be made. So presentation time is 10 minutes, like I earlier said. Group one, if you're ready, please, you can come up, share your slides with us and start your presentation. The floor is yours. Precious, can you hear us? Hello, group presenter, can you hear us? Precious, are you with us? Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Oh, all right. It seems our group presenter is having a little issue with our audio. Precious, if you can hear us, I can help you share your slides from my end, right, so that you can just kindly continue with your presentation. Okay, it seems Precious is having little network issues. So please, do we have anybody from Group One who can step in to start the presentation until she joins back in? Like I said, I can help share the slides on behalf of the group while you make your presentation. Okay, if Group One is not ready, we'll go over to Group Two. Group Two, please, you can step in to make your presentation. Please, let's try and hurry that up so that we don't spend so much.
Good evening, everyone. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. I can hear you.
Okay, so I will be stepping in to present for group two. I was just informed not so long ago, but I don't know if someone can help me present because I'm using my phone now. It's a PDF and the format is quite off. So if someone can just help me present.
All right, I'll be helping you share your slides so that you can carry on with the presentation.
All right, thank you so much, sir.
All right,
Okay, and
just
just to
give me,
confirm, I have 10 minutes, right?
yes, you have 10 minutes.
All right, no problem. All right, thank you, sir. I can see.
All right. Please confirm this is the right presentation.
Yes, this is the presentation.
All right. Please, you can go ahead. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so my name is Ufoma Madagwa. I'm a member of Group 2, and today we will present under the course Film Business and Law, we will be presenting on the topics organization in the film business, royalties, infringement and enforcement. We'll be presenting on organization, royalties, infringement and enforcement, and distribution in the film industry. So the film industry is a combination of creativity and business, and it operates on a global economy as it operates as a global economy for several nations. In somewhere like Nigeria, Nigeria has the second largest film industry in the world. And so, of course, we can boldly say that Nollywood, which is our film industry, contributes greatly to our GDP. But true success in the film industry actually requires a knowledge of so many things. Whether you are a lawyer looking to venture into entertainment and film, or you are a key player, that is, you are a producer, director, or you're just someone looking to get into entertainment or film, it's necessary to have a bird's eye understanding of organization, royalty, distribution, contracts, infringement, and enforcement. So as we go on, I think this concept will be a bit clear. And then, of course, you can always refer to our slide if you want to just read anything again. So yes, the legal framework, first of all, of the film business has to do with different things. The legal framework deals with safeguarding of intellectual property, which are the rights that are attached to the creative works that are born out of the film industry. Right now, under the Copyright Act, I think the phrase to properly use to refer to films or creation in the film industry is audiovisual works, because you have, instead of cinematograph films as before, we now refer to them as audiovisual works, and you have films, whether they are movies or series or even music videos. So the legal framework also deals with the regulation of contracts, the contracts between actors and the distribution companies, actors and production houses, actors and directors, producers. Just think of contract, any kind of contract that you can actually even imagine in your head right now that has to do with anyone in the film industry makes up the legal framework. The legal framework also deals with the enablement of royalties and profit sharing in the film industry. Now, when we are looking at the legal structure of the film industry, there are so many things that come into play. We talk about ownership, who owns the creation. So under the Copyright Act of 2022, the copyrights, ideally the copyrights or the rights, the IP rights embedded in that is embedded in cinematograph films depends on many things. The copyright could either be the belonging of the director, of the producer. It could be, so ideally this person is known as an author. So who is the creator of the work? So you don't really have actors obviously as the owners of the films or the creations that you produce. You have the directors, you have the producers, you even have the script writers. So it really depends on the specific details of the creation of the film, of the audiovisual work at the end of the day. Then we also talk about liability. So who's liable when a breach occurs? The infringer, who is liable when a breach occurs, and who has the authority to go to court to sue for that breach? That's also a question that is addressed in our legal structure. Then taxation, of course, each film, each production, not the film itself, of course, because it's not a legal entity, but you also have to discuss liability, which is taxation rather, which would usually accrue to like the production house or the production company where the cinematograph film or the movie is born from. And then you talk about profits and royalty sharing, which is basically how the money that they make from Netflix, all your views, all your clicks on YouTube, when it's converted to money, how is it being shared? These are things that make up the legal structure of the film industry. Now, the organizational structure, the film industry has three phases: production, distribution, and exhibition. So, of course, I'm not going to talk about these things extensively, but then under the production phase, there are several key players. You have the producers, you have directors, you have writers, actors, you have the crew as well. These people are they work. I won't say behind the scenes because they're actually the people you end up seeing on your screen. But this is where most of I would just call it the tireless shooting and the money spending and everything goes into the production phase. It's sort of the meat of the phases of film. Then you have the distribution phase. Distributors here handle marketing, they handle licensing, they handle streaming deals. For example, you finish shooting your movie now in Lagos. Now who is going to reach out to Amazon or Netflix, Amazon Prime or Netflix, or even Hulu and say, oh, this is it. We've created this amazing masterpiece. Come on, let's stream on your platform. Let's share the money this way and all of that. That's what the distributors handle. Then we have the exhibitors. They include cinemas, festivals, and streaming platforms. Of course, this is now for the exhibition phase. So when now you've discussed with Amazon Prime and Hulu and you've shown them the amazing what's the name of a Nigerian movie, To Kill a Mockingbird, or for example that you shot and whatever, the exhibitors, they are the ones that will now go ahead and stream it on their platforms. They can also be cinemas. Exhibitors include Genesis. I'm sure we all know Genesis, Silverbird, and Filmhouse, and the rest of them. These people also count as exhibitors. So now there are different proper structures or houses that this, or there are different structures that this what's it called, these key players can exist under. We have sole proprietors. I don't know if we've seen this. I don't know. I just see this stuff on YouTube a lot. But there's a recent wave of, you can see like a random actor now. Then you see they have their own YouTube page. And then they are, it almost makes you want to ask, is everybody now a film producer or director? I think this very famous movie, Love in Every Word, the Achalugo movie, it was Omoni Oboli that was, she was like the producer of the movie. And then, of course, everyone is like, oh, this lady was an actor. Maybe not everyone, but what comes to my mind is, oh, she was an actor and now she's making her own films. So that's an example of how the sole proprietorship structure can work. Then we have partnerships, which is like small scale partnerships. It can be between two producers, two directors, whatever. We have limited liability companies, which is how most of the film industries actually, or most what's it called, most of the producers, directors, or whatever you want to call them, whatever players are involved, most of them exist as full-on companies. Then we have what's it called, full-on production companies. Now this, you have Ebony Life, you have Film House, and the rest of them. These ones, they are proper production companies, sort of higher than limited liability companies. Then you have collective management organizations. It's necessary to know what they are. Why? Let's go, for example, now, what's it called, in Wakanda Forever, we
Hold
have
on,
Black
excuse
Panther.
me. Presenter, can you go back to the previous slide? I need to get what you said again. I need to take it. You said something is higher than a regular company. Can you say that again?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
So this has to do with you and Dennis. You have to take it back to the previous slide. She was referring to, she said, a production company is higher than the regular company. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's what I said.
Can you throw more light on that, please? What you mean by production company is higher than, before you go ahead. So we're not just reading the slides, okay?
Okay. All right. So, from my research or from my understanding, the production companies they have a different structure from regular, what's it called? For example, when maybe a group of people come together and then they register a limited liability company, and then they're carrying out production. From my understanding, that sort of had a different structure from how production companies like Ebony Life are run. But of course, I could be wrong, so it's still open to several corrections by our mentors for today.
All right. Please go ahead.
Okay,
Please
thank you.
continue.
Okay, so on to the next slide on royalties. So royalties in the film industry are payments made to copyright holders, right holders in film. We have music royalties, we have performance royalties, which are earned when film or music are publicly performed. We have residuals. They are ongoing payments that are accrued from re-airing, from streaming, or from the reuse of films or TV shows. Then we also have screenwriter royalties. They are usually like one-time fees, and they are different from residuals. And then we have producers back end profit participation, or like points, and they are basically made after costs are recouped. They are high reward royalties, but they're also very risky. So distribution of royalties is managed by studios, unions, distributors, and PROs. But there are also some challenges about there's also some challenges associated with royalties. We have piracy, we have inadequate funding, weak infrastructure, and of course we have rising competition. We have YouTube creators, we have people that I saw that one movie that was released, maybe I think it was 2023 by Tony Abraham, and then she was of course complaining in a frenzy that it was released, and then less than hours later she saw someone sent her the link to the entire movie. Something that was airing in the cinemas, so it's We have sad situations like that. So how do you, I believe it's obviously a challenge to the effective payment of royalties and just the film earning as much as it should earn. Yes, so now we'll move on to distribution, I believe. So under distribution, here I believe we're discussing how licensing under distribution we're talking of. So if you remember, I said at first that there are three phases in filmmaking, the film business. Then we have the first one. The distribution phase is usually the second phase. So under the legal aspect of distribution, we know that licensing agreements are granting distributors rights to market, sell, and stream content. Agreements can be exclusive or they can also be non-exclusive. We have rights accrued to movies set for a certain duration, and then they can be easily revert back to the producer. Rights clearance ensure that all IP is legally permitted and covers music rights, image rights, and copyright permissions. So proper clearance protects distributors from infringement liability. That's one thing we need to know about distribution. When we have proper clearance, it protects distributors from liability for infringement. And under distribution, we also have to consider that revenue sharing is also important. So revenue sharing would usually include box office splits, from cinemas, distributors, producers, and so on. So streaming royalties may be per view, can be fixed fees, and it can also be subscription or ad revenue shares. So we'll just briefly look at, or quickly, please, and time, but okay. We'll look at the essential clauses in licensing. Okay, thank you. Essential clauses in licensing and commercial agreements, which is the contract aspect of this presentation. So the scope of the rights, in a film contract need to be clearly defined. You need to define what a license can do. So now when you're licensing the rights to the audiovisual work, you need to consider or discuss what the licensee can do. And of course, the Copyright Act does speak on that, but of course, it's up to you as a lawyer now when you're drafting the contract to define what the license permits the person to do. We have exclusive licenses and non-exclusive licenses. Then there are also limitations when you're drafting a licensing contract again in film. There are also limitations that must be specified. So, methods of exploitation that are allowed will have to be indicated. The specific industries, the specific platforms you want it streamed on, or you want the licensee to be able to, work with, have to be specified. Then the duration of the agreement must also be specified. It must set how long the rights last. Then territory, you have to define where the rights apply. Is it a worldwide license? Is it limited to just Nigeria? Can the person do whatever they want to do with your film, with your audiovisual work, wherever they want to in the world, or is it just limited? You also have payment terms. You have that, of course, you have to include payment terms definitely. Then transparency in payments. You have to include provisions as to the termination of the contract, provisions as to dispute resolution as well. Then you also have to include provisions as to the copyright board that would deal or be incidental to the work. You have to specify the regulatory agencies, the courts. Very important. In Nigeria, for example, the all matters of IP can only be resolved by the Federal High Court because the Constitution. Is it just even the Constitution? Yes, actually, the Constitution, the section doesn't really matter as much as the provision. It says that all IP matters are resolved for the Federal High Court. So when you're drafting a licensing agreement, these are things that you have to consider. What is your means of dispute resolution? Is it limited by national laws? You just have to think widely, know a lot about film and IP to properly draft an agreement. Then digital rights management, which are tech tools on streaming platforms that block piracy. For example, there's one thing I've noticed. There are some streaming platforms that come up today. There's this studio called Angel Studios in America. They stream. It's a Christian. Let me call them a Christian production house. I'm still yet to fully understand how that works, and I think I'm thankful our mentors are here with us. So they're like a Christian production house. But one thing I noticed about them, you can't really get their movies anywhere. Like you can't see their movies are quite famous. They shot I don't know if you know The Chosen. It's a very famous, interesting Christian series, Life of Jesus and all. But you do not see their movie. You almost don't see. Let me say because from my end, I've never seen it on any pirated platform or whatever. You don't see it anywhere. So some platforms have actually they've cracked the DRM code so much that they are genuinely protecting their IP. Like you cannot just go on Movie Box or my Flix and then see some of these their movies there. So this is another thing that when lawyers are drafting licensing contracts, they need to consider things like this, and even us as participants in the film industry. Yeah, so let's jump on to enforcement and infringement now. Enforcement mechanisms in film. So there are many enforcement mechanisms. One I think is impressive that our YouTube sole proprietors and our YouTube sole proprietors, actors that are making movies now are using is watermarking. It's quite effective because I mean, yes, somebody has random or a random person has downloaded it. And in fact, even today, so these free to air decoders, most times the movie can come out the night before. We have one at home. And then the movie will literally come out the night before. Maybe you'll be planning to watch it. But then guess what? Turn on your TV and your free to air decoder is showing that same movie. It's sad, but at the same time, it's like this is. I mean, sorry, it's easy access, but at the same time, it's like this is quite sad. Someone has spent their time and effort, and I'm there watching it for free. But yeah, you can't always escape that kind of thing. So that's why watermarking I think is really good because most of them will put their watermark in a very big, it's so visible. Some of them will put it so small on the side, but some will just use it to cover the movie. And I support that because no matter what, at least let's know the person that made this movie. Let's be able to go back to their YouTube channel and watch their movies. So watermarking is good. Enforcement mechanisms, we have WIPO conventions. So the Berne Convention, we have the WIPO Copyright Treaty, we have the WIPO Performance and Phonograms Treaty. But when I'm briefly looking at challenges, you see why these treaties are not even the most helpful in Nigeria today. So the importance of contracts, of course, I mean, talking about having spoken about licensing, I think the importance of contracts is quite clear. You can't do the film industry without contracts. I mean, this is your time, this is your effort, your skill as an actor, your skill as a producer. The importance of contracts is, and I don't know how else we want to emphasize it except saying if you want to get the value for your talent, your time, and your money, you have to understand contracts in the film business. So contracts have to define rights and duties, they have to outline ownership. Sorry, this is the next slide now. This is like after my network. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Sorry for the delay.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, go
All right,
ahead.
thank you. Thank you. Okay. So the
We can
importance
hear
of contract. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so yes, it defines rights and duties. It gives us legal protection, certainty, and predictability. Very, very important. Enforceability. Please, you're going to court with something. Someone has breached your IP. The people you licensed your movie to, or whatever it is, whatever your work is, you go to court and you have something to stand on. Very basic. So yes, enforceability. Then trust and relationships. Formal agreements build confidence, reduce suspicion, and they sustain business partnerships. Now we move on to infringement and enforcement. This is my favorite part of this presentation, and I think the discourse of film business generally. I mean, with the little you get to know from uni and all of that. The major thing is that all these things are interesting. Yes, the film business. So this is what we can do, but the truth is that infringement is the I mean, from everything I've said, I don't think there's even any slide that has gone by that. I probably didn't say one or two things about infringement. It is the biggest challenge to the success of what I believe rather to the success of the film business in Nigeria, not just even in Nigeria, worldwide. You know, infringements can either be copyright infringement, it can be misuse of trademark, it can be breach of contracts, it can be just a need for enforcement generally. So you have copyright. It is the most common thing. Copyright infringement in the film business is very, very common. Every single thing I've mentioned, from streaming people's movies on free to air decoders to people. In fact, apparently now there are entire WhatsApp and Telegram channels dedicated to just providing movies for free streaming to people. I don't know how they even work on the downloads or whatever, but you can imagine someone's hard-earned money and hard work and time. Copyright surveillance is very common. Then we have trademark misuse, using of logos, names, and brands deceptively. Using like a fake Netflix, or some people even using Netflix logo. They are using maybe Superflix, Pureflix, something like that. It harms consumer trust. It's not just harms consumer trust, but I think it's even a lot more damaging to the amount of effort and time that these key players have put into their creative works. And then there's breach of contract, failure to honor agreements. So this, I think I said a bit about this Angel Studios, a production company in America. They made The Chosen. They had a breach of contract. So The Chosen is even apparently its own establishment entirely. Then Angel Studios is like, I don't know how this part of the film business works too well. So let me not be too technical. But basically now the chosen has even split. So the show has split from this particular production company. So now the next season of the show is going to be aired on Amazon Prime. But it was a whole IP breach issue that is sorted out and all with ADR in America and all. But basically, this is just an example of another way that infringement can occur in the film business. Then there's a need for enforcement, definitely. You can't just have the copyright act. The copyright act has told you, oh, as an author, as the person who created this work, you have this and this right. Okay, don't worry. But if you can't enforce it, what does that even mean? Imagine the copyright act telling you all the rights you have, and then the same day you release a movie, the next day you're seeing it on Netflix. I'm sorry, on free to air or something like that. What then does the copyright act really do to help you? So we obviously have to talk about enforcement in this discourse. So enforcement protects creators, businesses, and ensures fairness. When you have weekends, so some challenges, some things that are standing in the way of proper enforcement. We have laws that exist, but you have limited resources. Judicial capacity makes it ineffective. One of my major problems is that, or one of the things that I want to say I'm fighting with, but what am I really doing? It's an internal battle as far as I'm concerned. But I do not like that it's just the federal high courts that can enforce IP matters. It's very limiting on ADR mechanisms and I believe so many other things. There are ways to resolve it in-house, but I think that if there is a bit of more room for judicial enforcement, it's going to help a lot. Fast track courts, specialized courts. So some challenges we have, there's limited judicial capacity. The laws exist, but there are limited resources. Another one is that copyright violations across different countries complicates enforcement. I think IP is one of the most international areas of law because I don't envision anybody spending time and money to record a movie and then they want it to stream just in Nigeria. I think that's why a lot of people are going on YouTube. It's like, okay, if I can't afford to sign a deal with Netflix, let me post it on my YouTube channel. Everyone in the world still gets to watch it. So copyright violations across different countries, they are different of different nature. There are different limitations that apply. This is the problem. High cost of litigation. How much did you use to film your movie? How much do they want you to use to go to court to fight for whatever right or whatever breach that you face? Disadvantage to small creators. Independent filmmakers struggle way more than major studios. Then I think too much of a safe haven has been created for pirates, for movie pirates. I read some articles online in the past week. Like you can see, some of them are even like some of them are so bold about it. And let's be honest, if we said something like, "Oh, show of hands, how many of us have used a pirated site to watch a movie?" The truth is, a lot of us have. Even me that's talking, I'm not proud of it, but I have before. It's the safe haven is too much. Even dare I say, most of these producers have even used these sites to watch movies before. So it's like, what are we fighting something we're a part of? Those are just the questions that run into your mind. I don't know how to tell Nigerians that you say, oh, raise your hand if you've never used the pirated site. And genuinely, it's because they just had the moral leading not to. It's probably because they are just maybe used to using this streaming platform. They don't want to bother themselves with going to go and use so some of them underrate this pirated site. If not, the truth is almost every Nigerian has, sadly, not just Nigerians, I mean worldwide. Sorry, I keep referring to just Nigeria. Another challenge, you have these WIPO treaties that I mentioned, right? WIPO is the United Nations Specialized Agency for Intellectual Property, WIPO. You have their treaties, but the thing is that their treaties have been ratified, they've been signed, we've had the handshake deal with them, but of course for those of us that would know, treaties in Nigeria have to be domesticated to come into force, and apparently none of the copyright treaties or the treaties that border specifically on copyright have been domesticated. So domestication meaning after the treaty, we've gone to go and sign and shake hands and become friends with them. We still have to come to Nigeria, sit down in our National Assembly, and of course the president that does the signing is an executive thing. So we still have to go through the legislative arm of government. They have to do all their stages of bill reading, first reading, second reading, this one, that one. Then they now have to say, as the legislators, we have said this thing should come into law. Of course, that's not the entire process, but basically it has to be domesticated before it gets to force of law. And most of these copyright treaties that should benefit us, they've not been signed, they've not been domesticated. Guess what? What I believe is that is domestication really even the problem? What's the business of the regular, let me call him Joseph Johnson, a random name, that is busy putting everybody's movie on my Flix or movie box or wherever? What is the business with copyright treaty? How do you want to catch him? Okay, you've caught him, how do you want to catch the other ones? Honestly, it's a very slippery slope, but these are the challenges that we face. Enforcement mechanisms or how to overcome them. Of course, we can just look into, I think watermarking is small, but I think it's the most effective thing so far. Let's just be real. It's the most effective thing in terms of, okay, it's redirecting people back to, okay, this is the original creator, give credit. We can use Fighting DRM. The Angel Studios I mentioned, for example, I've never seen their series anywhere, like anywhere except their own streaming platform. We could use how they achieve this is using the digital rights management tools. We could use that. We could make it. Of course, the NCC is doing very well. They have so many strategies, so many initiatives. I think their work is quite commendable. Nigerian Copyright Commission, but they could, we could try, or maybe us now as people that are learning this kind of thing about film business, come up with policies, work with them on how to make more strategic, directed things that will protect the national works better. We can have DRMs that apply to as many creators as possible. Or maybe when somebody registers their digital copyright, of course, we've learned now that it's not even compulsory. But yes, anybody that registers, this is what you're entitled to, DRM and the rest of that. So these are just the few things we could just do to make it a bit of a safer space for make the film business a bit safer. And yes, thank you for your audience. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope I've been able to make a bit of sense, or a lot of sense so far. Thank you all so much. And I think now it's time for questions and, of course, corrections from our mentors. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right, thank you very much, Ufoma, for your very wonderful and detailed presentation. Well done to you and to your team for putting the presentation together. I am aware that you were not supposed to be the main presenter for today, so a good job. Well done to you for stepping in to do that on behalf of your team. So we'll be going back to Group 1 for their presentation. Please, we also like for it to be as snappy as possible, right, so that we can get to the mentors, to Mrs. Omotayo for we can get to Ms. Omotayo for her comments on the presentations. So back to Group 1 presenter, please, you can go ahead and start your presentation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Alimi Precious, and I'll be presenting on the film business and law. So we have different scholarly definition, but then with we'll be talking from entertainment law perspective, where scholars such as Olukotu in entertainment law in Nigeria describes film law as a branch of entertainment law dealing with legal and commercial issues in the motion picture industry. We'll also be looking at the business angle perspective. Film business and law is the study of how legal frameworks and commercial practices regulate the Nigerian film industry. It links creativity with financing, investments, regulation, and enforcement. Intellectual property view, where film are considered intellectual property assets that require legal protection against piracy, unauthorized distribution, exploitation. So we're going to the scope of film business and law. Majorly, film business and law is widely protected by the intellectual property. You also have the copyright, licensing, and anti-piracy enforcement, which protects films from illegal copying and unauthorized use. Then also, it's widely scoped in contracts, where you have to have agreements between producers, directors, the actors, the people that are going to be like financing the movie, the distributors, and exhibitors. Then the censorship and classification. The NFVCB screens films for public morality, decency, national security, and age-appropriating ratings. Yeah, we all know that movies should be widely censored, like they should be protected, like having the rating of maybe 18 plus, making sure that the movies displayed on the internet, on social media, online are widely regulated. Also, the promotion and development. Nigerian Film Corporation fosters Nollywood growth through training, archiving and collaboration. Then the distribution and exhibition governs how films reach audiences via cinemas, DV, TV, and modern platforms like Netflix, which we are all like, it's Amazon Prime and Roku TV. So I'll be moving to brief history of film business and global development. So from the 1890s, motion film pictures began. Thomas Edison in the US, Lumiere Brothers in France. Initially, no specific law films treated as novelties. Then in 1909, the UK Cinematograph Act, first law regulating the cinema safety, then later censorship. Then 1911, we have the case of Calem Co. Against Harper Bros. Where the court held that films based on books without consent equals copyright infringement. Then the rise of Hollywood studio system began in the 1920s to 40s. Then the brief history of film business and global development in Nigeria. The Nigerian development, the colonial era from 1903 to 1960, the first film shown in Lagos. Films were imported and used for colonial propagandas. Law were also British censorship and licensing. Like it was the British law that were like regulating the film back then, the colonial era. Also, post-independence, that is from the 1960s and 80s. Indigenous film making grew. We have people like Herbert Ogunde, Olabalogun producing movies. Nigeria Film Corporation established in 1979 to support local films. Weak regulation relied on Copyright Act and cinema laws. Then Nollywood emergence, 1990s, living in bondage, marked Nollywood's birth. Low budget video films exploded in popularity. So I'm moving to the importance of film business in modern law. So its major contribution is we have the hello, can you hear me? Film business contributes to the national economy, like when they impose tax, revenue, then it also creates jobs for people whereby they start making money, and also improves our foreign exchanges. Then it also protects intellectual property rights like copyrights, trademarks, and other related rights. It encourages cultural preservation and promotion of national identity. I believe most of us, we all like learn more of our culture through movies like movies that show our cultural heritage. Then it provides a regulatory framework for censorship, ratings, and public morality. It governs contractual relations among producers, actors, distributors, and investors. It ensures labor rights, fair wages, and working conditions. So we're moving to law, that is the legal pillars of film industry. So the legal pillars of film industry, they consist of copyright law. Talking about copyright, I meant to have spoken widely on copyright. So copyright literally like protects your rights to your movie, protects your scripts, films, soundtracks, and performances. Then also contract law. Contract law is what governs the relationship between the producers, the actors, the distributors. Also, labor law. Labor law regulates employment, the workplace safety, and workers' rights in film production. Then also the regulatory law, which classifies films and ensure compliances with national standards. Corporate and investment law also covers the business formation. So what are the challenges in regulating this film business? We have financial market challenges, difficulty securing funding, especially for independent filmmakers. Filmmakers who are just starting, they have financial issues. They don't really have much money that or much funding that can like help them produce good films. Then also decline in cinema revenues due to streaming platforms, market oversaturation makes it harder for new films to stand out. Then we have post-COVID, whereby we had cancelled of projects due to like COVID-19. People were unable to like go to locations to shoot movies because they had to like because they had to like stay at home and all that. Then it's also reduced income and made tougher competition. Also, the legal and ethical challenges. We have complex copyright battles in global digital distribution and rampant piracy and cybercrime. So the social and cultural challenges, lack of diversity and underrepresentation of women, minorities, then need for cultural sensitivity in cross-border markets, rising audience expectation for authentic and inclusive storytelling. The environmental and sustainable challenges, we have pressure for co-friendly film making practices, then high cost of sustainable production methods, push from audiences,
Hold on, excuse me. Dennis, is this the person that was supposed to present the first time that we ended up with the second presentation before? Sorry to cut you short. I want to be clear.
Yes, this was the this is the group
group
presenter.
one.
Yes, for group one. Yes, the first presentation we're supposed to have.
Okay, so are you standing in for someone, Precious, or is it Precious that should present earlier? It's Precious, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, were you the one that's supposed to present earlier?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Because I feel like you're reading your slides more than you're explaining. So did you study it before now? Because it seems like you are reading and we're all reading along with you.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, it's fine. Don't be sorry. I just want to be sure you understand or you understood. Did you study the slide before coming? So, you see, sometimes, you see, like myself, I know presenters, some teachers like to come with their slides. You people ask us to come with slides. For me personally, I'd rather even come without a slide. I'm talking as your mentor now, not as you. And the reason why I like to not come with slides because I like to teach, like everybody can go and research, read, and bring up something, but you really understand what you're bringing. So that's why I like to teach from my own practical experience, which it flows from inside, doesn't need a slide. But now that I'm giving us a slide, right?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would like you to, if you understood what you said, because if you are reading, it means you can just carry the whole book and all of us read along with you. Do you understand? So you can, the slide is to help you remember, oh, this is the point you're supposed to make, and you just something like freestyle in quotes, if you get what I'm saying. Or if this is your own way, just go ahead. But I just need you to know so that next time you're not just reading it appears to me like you're reading, unless I'm not the one really getting it. Okay, so let's continue.
Thank you very much for your observation.
All right, Precious, please go ahead.
The presentation. Okay, ma'am. So generally, we just exploit the link between business and law. Business and law, like the link between funding, production, distribution, marketing, and also law, which talks about copyright, how it protects the rights of its producers and creatives, and also contracts and like the relationship, the agreements between producers, filmmakers, the creatives, and people that they're going to be working with during the film production. Then also, I think I spoke briefly on piracy, on how it prevents people from copying other people's work. And also we also highlight key challenges facing filmmakers in today's world. Also, we also discussed the balance between creativity, profit, and regulation. So I'll be moving to ownership in film, business, and law. So ownership, this it determines who can exploit a film commercially. The person who owns it, the creative that like produced it, the person who have license, and the person who has rights to sell and distribute. And also the person who has ownership also concerns intellectual property rights such as copyrights, trademark distribution, merchandising rights, and adaptation rights.
Precious, are you still with us? Your network seems to be breaking. Hello, Precious. Are you with us? Okay. It seems like Precious is having a little network issue. Please, we'll just be giving her a moment to see if she can we can have her back on. But if not, we'll just be drawing a curtain on presentation as a whole, and then we'll take our mentors' feedback if Precious is unable to join it. Or okay, Babatunde Nicholas, are you going to be stepping in for her?
Just stepping for.
Oh, all right, please go ahead.
So, talking about ownership in film, business, and law, as you understand, meaning of ownership, coming together to make a particular film, there are several creatives that are there, and they are inputting their rights to ensure that it comes out as a big whole commercial stuff that they can make money from. So, the bundle of rights that come together from everybody, this includes, it determines who can exploit a film. When I'm talking about ownership in film, business, and law, it determines who can exploit a film commercially. That is, who can sell, license, and distribute, or to adapt it, that is, put it into video games or things like that. Now, we talk about copyright. The copyright, this is obviously the copyright protecting the expressive creation, that is scripts, visuals, that is from the directives to the actor to the person that had the visual of creating the film. Then I'll talk about the distributive rights of in film ownership. This is the right to control how and what the film is shown. That's basically what it means. They'll talk about the adaptative rights, the rights to create and the rights works. That is to making, let's say, for example, To Kill a Monkey, or a particular movie that has been made. Let's take, for example, a superhero movie. In creating that particular superhero movie into, let's take a video game, let's say the Hulk or Iron Man. So when I'm creating such a movie into a video game, this pertains adaptative rights. That is, these are the rights that pertain how exactly you are going to put the movie into a video game without necessarily downgrading what actually the movie was meant to be in the first place. So now we move to licensing rights. This is right to license the branding for consumer products. This is obviously in response to people that are watching the movie. Very presenter that we had in What said about trademark? Like we all understand what trademark entails. It is basically the protection of logos, the film's logo, the title of the film, and most particularly since it concerns films, the character names that signify the source of the movie. So now to the next slide is okay. So now we will now talk about who owns the particular, like I said in the beginning in my former slides, the creating of a film brings together several creatives. That is the character, the writer, the producer, the director, and also. So now, the writer, this is the person that basically owns the copyright in the script. You understand? So now the composer is the person that owns the copyright in the original music. Let's say, take for example, what's the name of this movie? Black Panther. So we have several musicians and songwriters that obviously be used in the background of the movie. So these composers of music they have their own rights to ownership rights to the movie based on the songs they have composed to in production of the movie. We go to the director of the movie and cinematographer. These are obviously authors of the good cinematographic work of the movie. That is, they also have an ownership rights to the movie because they are responsible for capturing and editing of all sorts in the movie. Then we go to the actors, the composers. Those are the actors, the composers. I've talked about them. Then the production company. Yes, of course. So now, when you're talking about a movie, the very beginning, we have talked about the writer, the producer, the director, the actors, and stuff like that. After all this all being put together, the production company is often the owner of the work for hire. Then move next to the work for hire. That is the employer. So if a contributor, like is an employee acting within the scope of their employment, that is the employer, the studio production company is considered the legal author and the owner of the outset. That is, according to the US concept there, the work hire, that is the employer, it basically entails, according to film business, this entails the owner of the movie itself to show. Then go to the option and purchase agreements. Then later buys rights. Okay, yes. Then go to the chain of title. That's the legal proof that the rights have obviously been acquired. Do you understand? So now when I've talked about, like in the beginning, I talked about the owner of the person that writes the script, the producer, the director. Transitioning all these things to the production company, then there's going to be a transition. So there need to be a proper chain of title that is changed. Whenever there's going to be a change, who exactly owns these rights, which these rights are things to, and this to further understand when the sharing of royalties. So that's why it's very important. Then we talk about co-ownership and joint ventures. Yes. So multiple companies share rights and profits when it comes to this when it comes to the ownership of movies and sort like that. Then we come to the copyright duration. So now, obviously, like it's basically entails, as I rightly says, the copyright duration, how long the copyright would last for the movie, and protection lasts for a defined. Like we all understand, our copyrights for movies or films last for at least 50 years in Nigeria until after publication, until it can be put out there to be copied for, and that can be used again by anybody. The next slide, please. Okay, yes. So we'll move to the modern complications or the problems that we have concerning ownership. So that's about, first of all, we talk about streaming platforms and talk about the demand worldwide. Streaming platforms demand worldwide rights. So now, obviously, streaming platforms like once we go further in the slides, go out there to accept contractual or movies. There's meant to be contractual agreements between movie actors, or let's say movies, and these streaming platforms where these movies are going to be put outside there. There's usually a demand or complicating territory because based on the contractual differences. They'll talk about international co-productions, the multiple legal systems that apply based on the international co-productions. This is also forced back upon the streaming platform demand due to the difference in territorial laws. They'll talk about AI-generated content. challenges that one of the challenges that I also face is that the fundamental requirement of human authorship for copyright protection. As you all understand that copyrights cannot fall cannot cover contents that have been written by artificial intelligence. These are one of the problems we have. Then we'll talk about shared universes and cross licensing. As is complex ownership structures, this person owns it based on the drafting of the contract. I think this is where the lawyer comes in into proper drafting of the contract. Yeah, move to the next slide. Okay, yes. So ownership in Nigerian film law. So now there are obviously legal frameworks that establish ownerships in the Nigerian entertainment industry. Some of these are entailed here. This includes the Copyright Act of 2004 as amended by the new copyright, like the person that presented to us this evening, like she earlier said, the old law was 2004, but it has been appealed by the latest 2022 Copyright Act. So this law obviously governs ownership laws in Nigeria. That is how different copyrights rights by several creatives are to be shared. We talk about the Nigerian Copyright Commission also serves as a foundation for legal framework for ownership laws in Nigeria. Then we talk about film. We go to the next point. Films classified as cinematograph films with exclusive rights to creations. Then who owns in Nigeria? Exactly how the laws. I think these are just territorial laws. Then the script writer. I think this is just like a reflection of the last slide. The director and producer, these are the cinematographic rights. That is, as you have copyrights to, you have your IP rights to as a producer or as a director to a movie. Then as a composer and a musician, musical rights. As a musician that have been employed to sing or to compose a particular song for a movie, you have your rights to in the movie. Then production company, right? Yes, production company. That is often the first owner if under contract. Then the investors and financiers, people that invest in the movies and stuff like that. Anybody here?
Hello. Just to interject, sorry for interjecting, Mr. Nicholas. Sorry, please, I would like for you to, if it's possible, to speed up the presentation. I see that people have quite a number of slides here on, so please, you can just quickly highlight very important points on the slides and let's run through it so that we can have time for questions and also the mentor's presentation and still be able to wrap up within time. Thank you. Do we have our presenter with us? Okay. It seems for some reason Group 1's presentation seems to be very shaky. But seeing that Ms. Omotayo has gone through their presentation and may have covered certain portions of it, please, ma, we just like to just hear your feedback on the presentation that you have listened to so far, and then we'll take questions and we can call it a close to session.
Hi, Dennis. Hello, everyone. Once again. So, first of all, I'll say a big well done to both groups, Group 1 and 2, or Group 2 and 1, since 2 presented first. And then I would particularly like to commend Ufoma. I think that's the name of person that spoke earlier. I understand that she was not supposed to present, and so sure you did a good job. You did well for someone who wasn't supposed to present initially. And And well done to every other member of the group because it's not just about who presented. Of course, everyone must have contributed somehow, some way. You're welcome. I got the name. That's good. Everyone must have contributed in one way or the other. So, teamwork makes the dream work, right? Now, I'll just go straight to the point because it seems like everyone is saying almost the same thing. But I'd just like to address everything you have said so far, right? If you go back to study, just take your time to study. So it's not like we're just doing this presentation because you want to get, I think you guys get certificates, right? I don't want you to just do this presentation and just let it go because you just want to get a certificate in the bag and move on. These slides are actually rich, like I read them. So if you're able to understand what's on your slide, I think if you can take this from me, both parties, you can exchange your slides, like slides, group one should read group two should read group one. I don't want to say one have preference for, but you both should study both of them very well and you'll be good. Then Dennis, please remind me to send in the materials I said I would share with you. The not the materials, that's the titles of the books, of course. So I would like to address that LLC and production company part former spoke about. So you were looking at the slide where you spoke. So I believe that's what they even said on the slide on the presentation was something like LLCs and production companies. So it's good you highlighted LLC, but what LLC means is limited liability company. Do you know that? Do you? All right.
Yes, I do, ma'am.
Okay, so the production companies, the Ebony Life, the Fan Network, all of them, they must have been registered as LLCs. So the legal structure under which that production company is registered is what the LLC is. So when you say one is more than the other, I'm not quite sure that's the best. Maybe I didn't get the way you're trying to put it, but the production company is just the type of business, right? Why the legal structure with CAC, how it is, how it is registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission is an LLC or LTD. LTD is limited, but in full, it means limited liability company. So what you would rather say is registering the production company as an LLC is better than registering as a sole proprietorship business. And not just a production company, most businesses, it's better to register them as the limited liability company, LLC, than sole proprietorship because of the numerous advantages like attracting financiers, right? Attracting loans and grants, and to have that in quotes bigger picture, bigger outlook there than just a smaller enterprise, which is sole proprietorship and maybe um, partnership. There's a partnership that is registered under business name too in the CAC. So if you're started doing CAC registration, I don't know if any of you have started. I think you have, right? You have, right? Is there anyone who has started doing CAC registrations by themselves?
Yes, ma'am.
So you understand what I'm saying. So the production company you're talking about, I think you are calling the business company. So people call all these things companies, even when they are not registered as companies. So the production brand is best or is advisable to register it as a company than as a business name or sole proprietorship. Even though I don't know what I would call it with the CAC when you allow companies to be registered by just one person. It still might actually be called a sole proprietorship, but that one is coming up for debate with the CAC some other time, not relevant here. So I also noticed the next point is I also noticed you brought in COSON and MCSN. Whenever I hear COSON, I'm always particular to answer because I used to work as legal counsel to COSON, external counsel to COSON some 10 years, 8 years ago, right? So COSON, if you're bringing COSON into film business in Nigeria, because COSON is Copyright Society of Nigeria, if you're bringing COSON into film business, it's not entirely relevant, if I would say, because that's mainly for musical works, not for film business. It's a collective management society, right? But it works particularly in the music business, not. So now I'm talking of practically, because I'm sure maybe when you did your research, this came out. But in reality, film business and COSON, they really don't have anything much to do together. Maybe at the point of your soundtracks, you might have something to do with COSON. Maybe, just maybe, not mandatorily, right? Or MCSN. But generally, it's not it's not for film business, it's for the music industry. So you have to understand, just like BMI in the United States, it's for music. So the COSON is likened to all these collective management societies, like the American Society of Songwriters, the BMI. So it's not really necessary here. If you're talking about it, maybe you have to bring up your soundtrack, your sound licensing in film. So that's like a byproduct of your film work, not an actual film work. Okay. So then royalties. When you mentioned CMOs distribute royalties, here, 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 would say maybe this royalty system. In our last session, Janice, okay, I don't know if you're in the last session. I think Amanda and I discussed this. Were you in the last class I had, this gypsy class? We had this discussion. Do you remember? Or were you there? I don't know if you were there. This royalty discussion.
I'm not very sure if I can't
Okay.
really fully
Okay, and people don't repeat. People don't do these classes. Like, it's not the same set of people we have, right? It's not always the same set of people, right? Okay, let me just go ahead and say this again. So in Nigeria, we don't really run the royalty system for films. Remember in the beginning of my lecture, I said, I'm trying to teach you the law as it is, like in practice, not as it ought to be. Of course, royalty is the lump sum payments you receive from your licensing deals. But in Nigeria, unlike Hollywood, unlike, I'm not sure of Bollywood, I'm sure in the United States, you see J-Lo, you see Will Smith, these guys are not just actors, they actually receive royalties from streamings of films. They're not even the film producers, they are only actors. But after being paid, they still receive royalties for as long as their contract states. But in Nigeria, I think it's only RMD once that was known for a particular time to receive royalty for it. I think it was the wedding party with Ebony Light, but we don't have that practice here in Nigeria. So what people do sometimes is you see actors come together, they pool resources together, and then the profit sharing. They share the profits. So when you're having deals when you go to Netflix and you want to have a deal with Netflix Nigeria precisely, what you get, what deal you get is a buyout. I'm telling you from my own experience, okay? What you often time get is a buyout. Of course, you can go as a lawyer and say, I want to do royalty, but you know how they say when you are in Rome, you behave like the Romans, right? Netflix is an international or multinational organization. The way they will relate with people in Hollywood is not the same way they relate with our producers here. So what they do is a buyout, a lump sum payment, and you just do a licensing deal, and maybe they pay you for that particular number of years your film is streaming, and that's it. So it's not like royalty like you have in the musical industry. Okay, so that's the only those are the only observations I have for you. Other than that, excellent job, and I'll be glad if you all understand precisely what you presented. So to group 2, that group 2 or group 1, I'm calling it group 2 now, right? That's group 1 on paper that presented later, right? That's Precious and Babajide, if I'm correct. You have a good presentation, but I think you need to work better with understanding what you're presenting. So you don't just read it. If in the course of your research you didn't understand something, maybe you don't limit your research to one particular source, because it appeared like the first presenter was reading. I told her earlier, it appears like she was reading more. But then I'll go to my observation. Most of what was said, I think we are dealt with them. I believe it's straightforward and easy to understand. So you actually did well by showing the rights. You showed the rights. I like the fact that you brought out the rights by beginning with writers, actors, because when you're doing a film, I think the pre-production part is when you start with the writer, right? So it's good that you arrange it that way. But what I'll add is that when you say producer, it's quite dicey. When you look at credits on your films and you hear producer, there are producers that are hired, like work for hire, and there's the executive producer. So when it's an individual, like someone like Mo Abudu that owns Ebony Life, you can call her an executive producer, right? So the executive producer, sometimes they don't even do so much. All they do is they actually bring the money and then they claim the rights. So you have to know the different types. There are, even when you are working, was not until like 3 years ago I realized that when you give the credit of co-producer and associate producer, they mean different things. So when you get into the business, you have to understand how these guys call themselves. The general word producer, yes, they consolidate all these rights, but they consolidate it into the production company if there's a production company. Oftentimes you don't see someone just say I'm just the producer. It comes through a production company, of course. So that's why you now have the contracts and assignments. You assign the rights from producer to production company. For companies is not a human being with flesh and blood, even though the law treats the company like a human being, the production company like a human being with flesh and blood, but it still comes through the human producer. So in your own dealing with your clients, when someone calls themselves the producer, you have to understand their relationship. Are they an independent producer that's bringing in what job of the producer in practically? You're bringing in the cast and crew. You are the one producing them. You're the one creating the content. You're the one bringing, oh, this is the person that I think should act this role. This is the person I think should direct this. This person I think should direct that. Even though sometimes there's some politics involved on sets, producer is not even allowed to do the job the way they're supposed to do it. But you have the production company that may actually hire an individual producer separately, and that producer will not have any rights whatsoever because the contract will state otherwise. Contract will state all of your rights, aside the right to credits, are reverting to the production company or someone else. So the producer sometimes, oftentimes, cannot even claim ownership legally. Okay, I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but I know that if this gets into your head and when you start practice, you would remember some of these things. Sometimes you're listening to something for the first time and you don't really get it until you actually see it in reality. Okay, so the second thing is what did I write down? Hold on. Second thing is directors having moral rights. Yeah, that's true in some countries, but in Nigeria, directors don't automatically enjoy statutory moral rights. So it depends on the contract. You see how I said contracts in this business are very, very powerful. Generally, Copyright Act will provide that author has the author, when I say author, the creator has automatic rights in something. But the contract states otherwise, the Copyright Act is not going to prevail over what that contract says. What the contract says that will prevail. So when you say a director has moral rights, every creative ordinary job moral rights, but sometimes in Nigeria, the directors do not even enjoy. You just pay them, come and direct this film for me. You get your credit, you move. And let me even bust your bubble. Sometimes when you see someone saying, oh, so person is, I don't want to mention names right now for obvious reason, is doing a double directorial film, maybe in the cinema or something. That's his first time of being a director. His name might be on the credit as director, but do you know somebody else might actually be the person directing? And they'll have a contract stating that all of this directorial job you're doing, it comes back to me because I want to have that credit. So that moral right is taken from the actual director, if you ask me. Okay. So it still goes back to the contract, but there's no contract otherwise, then of course the moral right you still enjoy it. If you are not understanding what I'm saying, you might have to go back to your slide because I'm getting all of these points from the presentation. Okay. So then you mentioned an option on option and purchase agreements. It's good that we're having this session so that when you do your research, someone can come and tell you what's obtainable in practice. Okay. So many things that we are being taught in school is not what happens in reality. So that's what I'm drawing your attention to. This option and purchase in Nollywood. I'm saying Nollywood because we're in Nigeria. Even though we want to learn about the international setup, it's good that you're able to understand what happens locally and you can compare it to what happens internationally. Okay. So producers often just buy scripts outright. They just buy scripts. You see the credits will say screenplay by so person. Screenplay is the person that wrote that script that gets the screenplay credit, right? Automatically. But sometimes the filmmaker would contact, it doesn't have to be a ghostwriter, a writer. Contact them, right? Give them the story. You can give them your story. That's why if you go back to your films, you see something like story by so, screenplay by so. So maybe the real original owner of the story is, maybe I just bring a very short, like a one page. I want to do this story, a story of betrayal between two people, in very few sentences. What the screenplay writer does is it builds on that. But when that person builds on that, in Hollywood, such people, they hardly even take away their rights unless it's a huge buyout. But here in Nigeria, what you're getting is credits. You're getting credits. Yes, you can get credits. Screenplay by so. But you are not getting ownership rights in that script. So it's an outright buyout. Unless you are like, I don't know who's one of the very popular writers. I saw like Joy Bewaji. I've worked with her. Joy Bewaji is quite, she knows her job. She will tell you outrightly, I'm still getting my ownership rights. And if you don't want to work with me, you can go. But if you're a budding script writer or you're just doing things because you want your money, it's an outright buyout they do here for writers. But in all of these corrections I'm making as a lawyer, is what your contract says that stands. So always look out for your client's best interest in writing in the contract. So what other thing do I want to say? Okay, you're right about the 50 years copyright ownership, and but internationally it could be longer than that. And then you're right about, it's good that you mentioned the biggest thing Netflix and international distributors look out for. You mentioned that, right? I think that's what you mentioned that. But then, if a soundtrack or script or performance isn't properly cleared, the whole film can be blocked from distribution. So clearance too, I don't know if anyone mentioned anything about clearance. So clearance beyond just, I've gotten this film, this script, and it's good to go. Clearance can be, someone mentioned Money Oboli's film in one of the presentations. I don't know if it was Ufoma that mentioned it or something, but I just want to draw your attention to when Money Oboli's film came out, after it hit like 4 million, someone came and said a particular scene in that film wasn't cleared. They didn't get permission from the person who had that scene, who did that particular clip. That's how the movie was going to be taken down, or I don't know if it was taken down, but it could be taken down. Things like that happen. So not just a clip in a film, a musical work. If you go and put maybe one of Davido's songs, just one very small, tiny part, just a very tiny part and you didn't clear with Davido, or you didn't clear with, even if it's not Davido, even if it's not a popular artist, you need to clear sounds, you need to clear every other creative right, soundtrack or any performance in that film. So that's where the work of your lawyer comes in. That's where your work, sorry, you're a lawyer already. So that's where your work comes in. When you're hired, you actually go as far as, I want to read the script. I want to know what is going to turn. I want to see how the end credit, when the work is done, you want to see how the end credits are given. You want to be sure that there's no copyright infringement, because once it goes live, imagine going to cinema and then you have to call out that film, call it back. So there's so much to do, and that's why you have to get into the business itself. You have to get into there's so much to do as sorry, excuse me. So like I was saying, there's so much to do as a lawyer. That's why the most important thing for you as knowing the law is to get into the business itself, understand the practical things that go on within the film business. So I guess that'll be all. Excellent session. I would say, like, you all did a very, very, very good job. And I believe that if you take these corrections and you read through both presentations, like I said earlier, you'll get it right, okay? Wish you all the best. That'll be all.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Omotayo, for your feedback into the presentation and overall helping us run through this session. So please, we'll be taking questions. Do we have any person with questions they would like to ask in session? So please, you can do well by a raise of hand so that we can point out your questions for you to ask, or point you out rather for you to ask. Do we have any person with questions since class today? You can also send your questions into the chat box. We'll be reading it if you do have questions in that manner. Please, do we have questions? Do we have questions? Do we have questions? Okay, in the absence of any question, we had a few questions come in from the mentees, I think from one of the groups for today's class. I'll be posting it on the chat box and be reading it to Ms. Omotayo to help us run through them. Okay. All right, I've done that. So the first question is, how can independent filmmakers, I'm coming 1 minute. How can independent filmmakers in Nigeria better navigate the legal sides of co-ownership and financing without access to formal legal representation? That is the first question mark.
Okay. How can independent, can you say that again, please?
How can independent filmmakers in Nigeria better navigate the legal side of co-ownership and financing without access to formal legal representation?
I don't know why someone don't want formal legal representation, but of course, maybe for financial reasons, right? I just feel like this question is, I'll answer the question, but maybe I'll answer it not as a lawyer, but as an individual, because I don't know why I would say you should not have legal representation. It's always very important to have legal representation. But of course, in the absence of legal representation, you can have simple written agreements, right? You can always have something to hold on to. You know this trend, this chakam trend. I'll just use that as an instance. Whatever someone says, chakam, you snap it. So not snap, but it just means like you put it down in writing, have something evidential to show someone else that someone has said this thing. Without a lawyer, you should at least put your agreements in writing in the barest like possible way. This guy said he will collect 200,000 naira, and he's going to come to site. I said site. He's going to come to set for 4 days, from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Put it down and write it. I even tell some people WhatsApp, because there was a case I handled that they didn't have an agreement in the beginning. I had to start referring back to their WhatsApp chats. I had to ask them, do you at least have WhatsApp chats? Let's see from there. WhatsApp confirmations, emails. WhatsApp makes things better. You just chat. Sometimes even after you have spoken over the phone, I tell people, just with style, just come back and say, oh, you said this. You said, I want to just be sure you said, right? Put it down and write it. This will say, yes, that's what I said. It's there for record purpose. So you can use templates. I mean, there's ChatGPT. If you cannot hire a lawyer, maybe you go to ChatGPT. This is me advising as an individual, not as a lawyer. But I would never advise as a lawyer that you shouldn't get a lawyer. You need a lawyer. You always need a lawyer. If you cannot afford a lawyer, get a lawyer friend. So you always need a lawyer. Then the next thing is get people that are transparent with money is always the root of all in not just in the film business, in a lot of businesses. So try to be transparent. Try to be That's me saying you as a creative, not as a lawyer. So you advise your clients who doesn't want a lawyer to try to be accountable and to be transparent in all of their dealings. Then you can decide to join these groups. You see the what's this group for directors again? Directors Guild, yeah. So you can leverage on that. You can decide to join the Directors Guild of Nigeria. Then that's a association of movie producers and which other one. So you can leverage on that. Just try to be so if anything goes wrong, you don't have a lawyer. You can just say, okay, let me go and report to DGN. Let me report to the president. Maybe they can help call out this person. That can help you. Register your company. Register your LLC instead of a business. Make it look structured. These are like simple steps you can take even when you don't have I guess that's answer. You don't have a lawyer. If you don't have a lawyer.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. Sorry. So thank you very much, Ma, for helping us with that first question. We have 2 more questions here. The second is, what are some practical steps creatives can take to protect their intellectual property before a project even kicks off?
Practical steps creatives can take. I say this every other time. Like you said, before project kicks off, your scripts. Before you kick off, you have your script. If you can, you even get a copyright registration for your scripts. If you can. Remember I mentioned that copyright protection is automatic, right? You do not need to register. But if you can, do a copyright registration for your scripts and get trademark protection for necessary slogans or names that you think are unique to you, right? They see NDA. I like my people in the film industry, they don't joke with their NDAs. They might not know much about contract, but you see NDAs, once a film is about to start, the first thing, even the person you are contacting and saying, I want to pay you money for something, to tell you, how far, what of the NDA? It's like there's an existing template there, so they don't even need the lawyer to draft the NDA. So always have an NDA, because imagine this film To Kill a Monkey, and everyone's talking about To Kill a Monkey right now, but they shot this film like 3 years or 3 years before now. So imagine what would have happened if everyone started hearing about the boss or brotherly and all of those things in the film before this year. This is where NDA comes in. The NDA must have made all of the cast and crew keep their mouth shut. You don't say anything about this to the public until the film is released. So NDA is very important. Then watermarking. watermark, like YouTube, you see these YouTube filmmakers, they don't joke with their watermark. You see a monopoly film right in front of you, even blocking the face of some things that you want to see right in front of you. You see all of this. What's that person? Is it Uchenna? I can't remember the name. Uchenna. One of all these popular, not just the popular ones. You see these filmmakers on YouTube, they always watermarking because, of course, people would want to copy, but at least if they are copying, let your name still show that you are the producer, you are the owner of this film. And always put things in writing. That first point I made in your previous question still comes to answer the second question. Always put everything in everything, be documenting everything. One day to come out useful for you. So that would be that. Practical steps, get a lawyer. Always get a lawyer. That would be that for that question.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Our last question here is, with the current state of collective management in Nigeria, how can young filmmakers ensure they receive fair royalties from their works?
I feel like I answered this question earlier. We are saying collective management. I'm saying Nigeria, it doesn't really work so well here. We don't really do royalty practically here. Okay. But structured, like I mentioned, structured film royalties is like an alien term here in Nigeria. Most times it's buyouts. I've answered this in my correction of the who said that? Was it the second group? One of the presentations. So, but if you must, you can negotiate profit sharing clauses. So instead of relying on royalties, you can just go to the back end, say, okay, this cinema deal, when they are done, I think what happens in Nigeria, so we were saying that when you hear box office sellouts, right, the money that comes back to the filmmaker is like 45%. That's like the general template. But you can still negotiate for higher. You can still negotiate for higher percentage, not okay, I'm coming in. Okay. Excuse me, please. Okay. I'm back to you. Sorry. So you can still negotiate for higher deals. You don't have to like depend on the normal regular structure in the 45% that they always see. Okay. So it's your job as a lawyer to negotiate for profit sharing clauses. Then registration with CMO. If it's your music, I mentioned earlier, the musical aspect, the soundtrack aspect, then you can do that to register with COSON or MCSM. But for enforcement, I would not lie to you, it's actually rich. So even without it, maybe you just police your work by yourself. Enforcement is actually very, very, you can send complaints. So it's better for now. It's better to have direct contract with distributors and producers. Have your contracts. That way you can enforce that on the court of law instead of relying on this CMO for film here in Nigeria. Then it would be good to, if you can work with, I think a lot of Nigerians now, a lot of Nigerian filmmakers are rather working with streaming platforms like Amazon, like Showmax, like Netflix. Somehow it appears to be more beneficial to them than even going to box office rather than going to the cinemas. I think it's more beneficial. It's a safe landing ground for them. And monitor your work, self-monitor, self-audit. I always tell people as a creative, it's your job to police your work. Nobody will come and help you say, oh, your work is being streamed. Yeah, people might have the fan base that will help you do that. Like someone mentioned, I think it was Former that mentioned about Tony Abraham, but one of the presenters mentioned that when Tony Abraham's film was released, she noticed that they were already sharing the link in Telegram also. It's your job as a creative to self-monitor, put your eyes on the ground, where things are going wrong, so that you can actually find a way to curtail it. So that will be all. I hope I'll be able to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Ma, for helping us run. Right. We're still asking if any person has. We can still take one or two questions if anybody from the class still has maybe one or two questions they would like to ask. But if there are none, right, we'll be calling it a close on today's session. Thank you so much, Ms. Omotayo, for helping us really do justice to this topic. Well done to both groups for putting together your presentation. Subsequently, in other classes, you will also be asked to prepare presentation ahead of the class. We ask that, or we plead with the group, or we plead with members of this particular course to take your presentation serious, and the efforts that you put into it. It's what gives some kind of fine-tuning to the process and helps your knowledge and helps the knowledge process better, right? So we've come to the end of today's session. Please do not forget to do not forget to do not forget to share what you have learned on your social media platform. Do not forget to also tag our mentors and also tag us, all right, when you are sharing your posts. And I look forward to seeing all of us in the next class. Please make sure to fill in the attendance also, right? Do not forget to fill in your attendance to show that you were in today's class. Thank you once again, Mrs. Omosayo, for your time today and for your shared knowledge. We really, really do appreciate everything that you do for us. Good night, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a lovely night rest, everyone. So I'll send you the email, okay? Bye.
All right, Ma. Sophie will reach out to you, Ma.
Okay, Sophie. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ma.